Razia Nazmi. Razia Nazmi was born on September 4 in Barisal, Bangladesh. She obtained a master's degree in Sociology and Law degree from Dhaka University, and is also a member of the Bangladesh Bar Association. Later she pursued a career as an IT professional in the United States. The expatriate life could not keep her away from Bengali literature. She is involved in various art and literary activities. Lives in New York. If only time had stopped. Naima, they've texted, they'll arrive in 45 minutes. Are you done? Not hearing from Naima, Jamil said, I've given Naima her milk. Come down quickly. Okay, I'm coming. Naima did not feel like saying anything else. She could never be done preparing for the person coming today. It seemed something was unfinished. She cleaned all rooms and yet it felt as if there was a corner still left dirty. She heard that dust can irritate allergies. So for the past 7 says she cleaned every nook and cranny, and sprayed every inch, then covered the furniture with clean sheets. Only moments ago, Jamil brushed the sheets off and sprayed everything again without her having to ask. It was obvious how nervous he felt. This was Jamil's first meeting too. He spent the whole day yesterday practicing what to say, whether he should hold hands or just simply embrace. With her hand on her belly, Naima stood in front of the bathroom mirror, and took a deep breath, but today, not one of longing. Though this encounter will be brief, they will be here. It will be the first time together for a whole day and night. After all these years, Naima has so much to say, so much to share. Will she be able to explain why she had to make the choices that she did? Naima was 15 when she fell in love with Jamil, who was 2 years older than her. From skipping classes to all else, they broke all the rules together. No one was around to stop her, to guide her. By then her mother was already suffering from cancer, dying some months after she was diagnosed. Her father was a bohemian who was not particularly practical nor responsible for his family's well-being, became even more so. After her mother's passing, he fell further to years of drug abuse, and eventually turned to rehab. Before she passed, Naima's mother told her, though you are still young, you need to look after yourself. You still have time, pull yourself together, get things right. Study hard. You need stand on your own feet. Though Naima heard her that day, she didn't take it to heart and didn't give it another thought. Naima could never understand her mother. She could only see that for some reason her mother was never happy. Naima didn't want her mother's life. Though her mother was educated, had a good job, she was living a simple and robotic life. Naima did not want such a life, and chose a path that was far from her mother's vision. The only thing that was real for Naima was Jamil. She could never think of anyone else but him. A year after her mother's death, Naima realized that another life was growing inside her. For the first time she was scared. For first time she felt lonely. It didn't matter if her father understood her, it was if he was never there for the first time, she needed her mother. And by then, Jamil had already returned home to his parents in the country. 17 and alone, Naima was thoughtful and reflected on her life. There was no time left to abort now. Even if she couldn't imagine it. She often spoke to her mother, hoping for her guidance. As if she could still hear her. She felt like she was there listening to her, telling her, what is done is done. Do what you feel right. Let this child see the light of the world. Naima knew her mother had been observant, and would never actually advise this, but hoped her mother would say what Naima needed to hear. But even if the child was born, she thought, would it see the light of the world? Naima hadn't even passed high school, and didn't have a proper job, her own future was in darkness. Naima felt as if she was becoming more like her own mother, every time the child moved inside her. Her mother tried hard to give Naima a better life, even if she was a difficult daughter, though in the end she couldn't achieve it because of her disease. Naima never really cared for her mother. Yet her mother always tried to cook her favorite foods. She would always clean her messy room. Does Ma know that she has been keeping her room organized these days? Naima brings her computer closer, as the movement in her belly increases. She needs to know how she can do all things to bring light for the person growing inside her. She started calling adoption agencies one by one. Within 2 weeks she started receiving calls for appointments. Naima is not 17 anymore. She feels like she has grown up quickly in these few months. She would take care to prepare herself properly to meet the future parents of her kid. She would try to answer all their questions, and would write them down in her notebook. The woman from the agency tried to console her. Don't be upset. We will keep trying until you find the right parents. Naima would worry and wonder, but what if before that happens? In the beginning of her 8th month, Naima received a call from the agency to meet another couple, the potential future parents. She stood before her mother's picture for some time, and ventured out for the agency. She brought the notebook containing questions and answers. They had arrived before Naima did. The woman went towards Naima as she entered the room. She said, "I am Samia Jahan, my husband Karim Jahan. We are from India." The husband stood up and asked, "Do you need help?" He offered her his hand. Naima did not reject. It has become difficult for her to sit and stand up from the sofa these days. And yet, this is the first time anyone has offered to help her. Maybe if Jamil was here, he could have done the same. Karim asked her questions. "How long have you been here in the US?" "My parents came here when I was 5 years old." Naima responded after leaning back on the sofa. "We were born here. But we travel often to many other countries for our jobs, you should know this. But we come back here in the holidays every year." "What would you like to know?" Naima said. "Have you decided on a name yet?" asked Samia. Naima was surprised. No one has asked her this. This question is also absent from the long list of questions Naima wrote. "No, I haven't. Because..." The husband stops her by saying, "As we were coming here, we were thinking maybe you could name the child Naeem. But of course only if you want to." Naima has not cried in the past 7 months. Today she could not hold back. Samia wipes Naima's tears away and tells her, "We will love him with everything we have. The rest is on God." Naima looked at them. She realized Naeem will look good in their arms. At night, Naima was watching her belly as the baby was moving inside her. She felt like touching her belly, caressing the unborn child. Every time the baby would move, Naima would rub her belly saying, Naeem, we're okay baby. Please understand." Samia and Karim came to see Naima on the day of delivery. Naima hadn't been feeling well since the day before. She went to see her father at the rehab facility. Her father cannot recognize anyone, not even Naima. Still, Naima kissed her father on the forehead and asked for his forgiveness. The pain was unbearable that night. The nurse told her to wait a little longer to admit at the hospital. But she could not bear the pain into the dead of night, but she hesitated to call Samia. In the end, when she called, it was 5 in the morning. Samia asked Naima to stay these last few days with them. Naima didn't want to. She felt like sleeping with her son in her own bed just for a few days. After fighting through pain for 19 straight hours, Naeem was born to see the light of the world. He only cried once. Afterwards, with head full of dark hair and big eyes, he kept looking. Upon putting a little cap on his head, the nurse put him on Naima's chest. He was the most precious, most beautiful person of Naima's life. Naima whispered in his ears, "I'm your mom. Don't you ever forget that." Naima stayed in the hospital with her son for 2 days. Samia had come with her husband to see them. Mother and son were left to spend some time together, and Naima sang all the songs she knew to her son, those 2 days and 2 nights. She told him why she could not keep him to herself and asked for forgiveness many times. She told him how much she loved him, and that she will love him forever. She kissed his small feet, head and hands, breastfed him as much as he could. She would not send him to the nursery, not wanting to spend a moment apart. The nurse advised her saying, "You need to sleep." Naima replied by smiling, "I've slept enough. I will sleep again the day after tomorrow." Naima, who never wanted to become a mother, and just wanted to enjoy life, now wants to be a mother and to enjoy motherhood. Even in the wild life she had led, she had pure love. She loved Jamil so much. Today, the child of their love will also disappear like Jamil. Naeem got his complexion from his father Jamil. Naima breaks into tears as she discovered the similarities of Naeem in facial features like eyes, nose, lips, forehead with Jamil. She really needed Jamil today. Why did he leave, giving her the most precious gift? The 2 days passed by quickly. Samia and Karim came back. Naima knew they were happy, but they didn't let it show. Samia stood closer to Naima, but did not show her unnecessary empathy. Samia herself felt a bit of guilt in her happiness. Swallowing all the sadness of her loss in life, Naima gave Samia a small pouch and said, "I have a necklace and a couple of pictures in it. One of them is mine, and the other is of my parents. If one day you could tell Naeem." Samia replies while taking the bag, "We will, Naeem will know about you, we promise." Naima thought Samia was trying to hide her tears. But why? Was it the pain of not being able to become a mother for herself? Or she feels bad for taking another mother's baby for herself? It was getting harder and painful for Naima to walk towards the couple's car. Karim opened the car door. Naima put a sleeping Naeem in his seat in the car. Naeem cried a little in his sleep. Did he know he was leaving his mother forever? Naeem falls asleep as Naima puts her hand on her son's chest. Sitting on the other side, Samia put the seat belt on Naeem with expert hands. For the last time, Naima kissed her son's forehead and said, "We will meet again, I'm sure we will. But I will have to be good enough for you." Naima stood and watched the car drive away as long as the eyes could see. The scars on her belly are fresh, her body still aching from the pains of delivery, her breasts swollen as they are full of milk. The one for whom all of this was meant for, isn't here anymore. He left her with all the marks of becoming a mother, as he left his mother's arms to bring light to another mother's arms. Naima could bear him in her womb, but could not keep her in her arms. She is unable to handle the weight of this truth. The pillow still bears Naeem's smell. The white and blue towel used to wrap Naeem's little body is on the bed. Holding tightly to her scar on the belly, Naima sits still on the bed. If she could only just cry out loud and leaning her head on someone's shoulders. She knew this was going to happen, and still couldn't understand why it hurt so much. Naima was startled as someone touched her head. "Is it Samia? Are you back?" He was crying, right? But as she turned, she found instead a nurse standing there, looking at Naima with love and affection. Nurse said, "Time will heal all your pain, sweetheart." Naima wanted to ask, why did this happen? Why couldn't she keep the people she loved? Why does everyone leave her? But she knew, some questions and some tears don't have any answers. She had lost the right to claim her own child forever. As Naima got up to pack her bags, the nurse gave her the towel and Naeem white shirt saying, "Keep them as memory, maybe one day God will bring your child back to you." Naima couldn't say anything. She nodded as she left the hospital room, carrying a bag in one hand, and Naeem's blanket and shirt in another. She never felt so low before. She went to hospital for the one who was living inside her, and now that child has left her feeling life is meaningless. She walked the long corridor, rode the elevator down and got in the waiting taxi. She returned home with a world of emptiness. She stood before her mother's picture. "I gave him up, Ma." Naima spent her first month after becoming a mother by going around Samia's place. She would hide herself hoping to get a glimpse of her child. One day she realized that she wasn't supposed to do that, but vowed to become someone worthy of standing before Naeem. It was hard for her, but sometimes she felt like seeing her son. If she could not resist, she would leave the house to see him, but would return half the way there. She moved away from the city to resist from seeing her child. With the help of a friend from childhood, Naima started a new war on survival. From working as a housemaid and other odd jobs, she had done anything she could find to turn her life around. She started night school, and she went to college and eventually landed a good job. One day out of the blue, Jamil came back to her life. Naima was taken aback to find him one evening after coming back from work. He was a changed Jamil, sitting on the stairs of her house. It has been a year since Jamil returned. It took him all year to find Naima. All her sorrows came down in tears as Naima found Jamil standing in front of her. She put her head of Jamil's chest and cried out loud without hesitation, complaint or disbelief. Naima only had a scar on her belly to show a speechless Jamil. Naima went back to hospital after 2 years. It was for her daughter's birth. But this time she isn't alone. Friends and family also came to the hospital. Jamil is in the labor room. The newly born girl was in her father's arms. There were no similarities between last time and this time. It didn't take that long for the child to born either. Naima was remembering that day after taking her daughter on her chest. She held Neem just like this, but couldn't bring him home, couldn't raise him as her own. She never heard her firstborn call her mom. She whispers in her daughter's ear, "You will call me mom." Naima's eyes are in tears. How is Neem? How much has he grown? Naima stupidly said to her doctors after she became pregnant, "I don't want these scars to go, please don't mix them up with the new scars." The surprised doctor said, "Everyone wants them removed but you." She looked at the doctor and said, "It is the memory of my firstborn." All these years she would touch her scars to feel close to Neem. Samia and her family went to India, even before Neem was a year old. They let Naima about it though. That was tough for Naima. She would not go to her son like a beggar, that promise kept her from visiting her son. Sound of a car stopping comes, Jamil calls Naima again, "Naima, come down honey, they are here." The door opened before the doorbell even rang. Naima tried to hear the voice. Jamil says, "Please come on in." Why? Why isn't he saying, "Come in son"? She hears Samia's cheerful voice asking, "Where's Naima?" What is Jamil doing? Is he asking them to take off their shoes? No, she could hear the sound of shoes shuffling into the house. Naima was shaking just a few minutes ago. She felt like her scars were growing fresh again, just like the first day. She came down the staircase calmly. Neem was standing in a corner of the living room. 2-year-old Ima was sitting on his lap. He was rubbing her sister's nose with his own, and the Ima was giggling on her brother's lap. Jamil stood right beside him. The similarities are vivid between Jamil and Neem. Is that what Kareem was looking at too? Naima tried to say thank you to Samia, grabbing her arms. Naima couldn't say anything else. She had to cover her face with her scarf. She got closer to Neem. She wants to touch him. Wants to hold and hug him. But can't. There is an invisible wall. Naima knows she cannot break this wall down. She was one who helped make this wall. Samia put her hand on Naima's shoulder and said, "Neem will stay for a couple of days with you guys. We will come back after to take him back with us." The words felt like a bullet has struck her. Take him back. This time, it is again only for 2 days. Naima had done everything she could to become a worthy mother to Neem, but she still does not have the right to claim him. Did Jamil hear that too? His face looks as if shell-shocked. Why is he looking so helpless? Naima whispers, "They will take him away, and Neem will be gone again. He's only come here to leave us." Naima touched her son's hair lightly. The 12-year-old Neem was busy playing with his sister, but he took a quick glance at Naima. Jamil grabbed Naima's hand, then pulled her towards him. Ima was on Neem's lap. Neem's eyes are teary. She wished if only time had stopped at this moment. Translated by Imran Hassan.